Let's get into the East, John. Our big news today: Jayson Tatum questionable for Friday's game. We all knew he was coming back, and it just seems like we have a timeline at this point. And I don't know. We've talked a lot about the Pistons, how strong they are, and we've all had an idea that Tatum was going to come back at some point. Something I found interesting: a couple Western Conference vets who were around New York lately, they were saying that they're saying, look, yeah, the Knicks, they were asked, I guess, about the East in general. The idea that, hey, maybe it's a finals matchup here. Though a couple of those vets were saying, what about Boston? I mean, can you get through Boston? Boston's going to be really tough. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of what opponents feel like the Celtics are now and then can be with Jayson Tatum, those guys were talking about them as kind of the toughest out in the East from their view, and that was a few weeks back. So it just intrigued me to hear how those guys viewed the Celtics, because we were talking a lot about the Pistons, and hearing it from a player's point of view always kind of piques my interest. I'm just wondering, John, if you are kind of power ranking Knick opponents at the top of the division. Now we have Tatum coming back. What are your thoughts on kind of what will your power rankings be right now if you spun it forward to the last week of the season?
I would put Boston at number one. I would put them at number one in terms of the team that putting the Knicks aside, that out of them, Detroit and Cleveland, I would have as the most likely threat to make the finals. And I think I would probably have them as the team that I don't want to say fear the most, but I would have the most trepidation in terms of my confidence level heading into that series. And a lot of Knicks fans obviously are going to point to last playoffs, and the Knicks beat the Celtics in 6 games. And you missed me with the revisionist history that the Celtics still had a chance to come back in Game 4. They did not. The Knicks were winning that game. They were going up 3-1, whether the Tatum injury happens or not. All that being said, those two teams played 24 quarters of playoff basketball last year, and I would say the Celtics pretty significantly outplayed the Knicks for more quarters than the Knicks outplayed the Celtics. Mm-hmm. The fourth quarters in games 1 and 2 obviously happened, and that's what decided those games. Knowing what I just have read and heard from Joe Mazzulla, I would bet that he will be able to use that series and those specific games as motivation for his team this year about, hey, we let a golden opportunity slip away. We owe them. And so you're talking about a team that is not only good, that is not only probably the best coach team out of the contenders in the NBA this year, but a team that is going to feel like that was their series to win and they let it get away. I think that would be an absolute war if the Knicks face the Celtics in the playoffs. And I absolutely think that it's not crazy to think that Boston could emerge victorious, but I do still think at the end of the day, with the changes that the Celtics made over the summer for cap reasons, I think the Knicks have more talent. It's about putting that talent together and making it work for you in the way you need to.
It's really remarkable. Just take yourself out of the rivalry, the New York-Boston rivalry, the Knicks-Celtic rivalry. Remarkable that team, in what was supposed to be kind of a gap year with Jayson Tatum out, has done what they've done, and now here we are with Tatum on the verge of returning. Carmelo Anthony on his show, 7 p.m. in Brooklyn, he had a take on Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and he was saying that he thinks Tatum needs to be mature when he returns, knowing it's Jaylen Brown's team this season. And look, I'm not going to pretend to know the inner dynamics of that locker room, particularly between those two guys, but there's going to be an adjustment period. There's certainly going to be an adjustment period, and Jaylen Brown has played so well at such a high level at the usage that he's been at. Like, how do you wiggle Tatum in? It's not going to be easy, and I think that the mature. I think Jayson Tatum strikes me as a very mature player and somebody who's not going to be upset or pouting about anything now that he's back on the floor. But it's going to be a challenge. I mean, what do you make of getting Tatum back into what the Celtics have established, particularly Jaylen Brown?
To me, he is, when you talk about superstars in the league, and I do think he's a superstar. I think I would argue that he's as easy a plug and play guy when you look at the dynamic of the Celtics, because, even if he is nothing more than a floor spacer who can, attack closeouts and make the next pass and make the read. And then when Jaylen Brown's not in the game, he's your guy initiating offensive possessions. If that's all he's doing, and then being asked to defend at an apt level on the other end of the floor, like what reason do we have to believe that he can't do those things? And I don't think we have a great reason. And the other part of it is, it's not like Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown got thrown together last year or the year before that. Like, these guys have spent their entire careers together. They know each other well, obviously. I think I would guess that there's a respect factor there. So again, it's not to say that the adjustment is necessarily going to be easy and that there aren't going to be bumps in the road. But if you're looking at, we have, it's March 5th. So we got another 5-6 weeks left before the playoffs start. Like, I think that's more than enough time for those guys to work out whatever kinks there might be, which, again, as a Knicks fan, is certainly something that I'm keeping an eye on.
Tatum, if he comes in and does kind of what you described, John, floor spacer, attack closeouts, defend, move the ball. I mean, that's the best connector at that position in the league. I think I can't see Tatum coming in and like demanding shots or like creating issues behind the scenes. Those guys have won together, and so maybe, I know it's a narrative, but a little bit maybe overblown. And Tatum, if he slides right in there, I mean, good luck to the rest of the league. We do have Kristian Winfield, New York Daily News, back with us, hanging in with us. He is on his phone. Appreciate you jumping back in, Kristian. We were just talking about Tatum coming back and kind of power rankings for the Eastern Conference. With Tatum back, kind of spinning ahead to like the last week of the season, how would you rank those top teams in the conference in terms of Knick opponents?
Right now, I need to rank Verizon as the bottom of the barrel for internet providers, because we've got an outage in my neighborhood right now. I'm recording right now from my apartment. What is this, lobby? I don't even know what part of the house this is, but no. So Tatum comes back. I think he's gonna have to obviously adjust to the team not being his anymore, right? Like, this is Jaylen Brown's team now, and egos are a real thing. How does he adjust to that? We don't know. We don't know what that looks like. That being said, this is a team that's gone to the finals and won it before, right? So I expect that they've already done that checking ego for the greater good thing. So that's a team I'd be scared of, right? For the Knicks, I think number one is Detroit. You want to avoid them at all costs. Number two, you've beaten Boston in spurts this season, but they haven't had Tatum. And number three, I think the Cavs are for real, man. I think once they start to get the ball rolling, you're seeing James Harden play good ball. You're seeing the depth they added with Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis and Donovan Mitchell. Obviously, the jury is out on them in the playoffs between James Harden and Donovan Mitchell. I don't know. Number one, I don't think either of them have been to the NBA Finals since James went with OKC, right? And number two, those guys just don't do deep playoff runs in general. They're allergic to them. But they're overdue, right? They should be getting over the hump at some point. That's another team that I don't want to see if I'm the Knicks, but you're gonna have to go through all of them. Sure, why not? Didn't one of you guys say draw Detroit, do 1-4, get Detroit in the second round and get it out of the way, right? Just rip the Band-Aid off, go for it, right?